Hello campers, back again. We're going to have another chat. Malcolm Blunt, a subject that's been a long time ago for him, but I thought it was important, and that's the Warren Commission. First question, you never mentioned it like you did the Dallas thing, you did the anti-Castro Cuban thing, and you did the Central Intelligence Agency thing, and in between you had FBI, this, that, and the other. But when did you actually start to investigate the Warren Commission? What time?
I think it was in the slot between 1999 and 2001.
So it's after Harvey and Lee?
Yeah.
And what got you into that?
Although I remember dipping into it, but not seriously looking at it. I didn't do the real research through the Warren Commission volumes until those 2 years, 99 to 2001, I think.
And what got your focus towards that then?
I think the Rankin papers.
Right. Tell us about the Rankin papers, for those that don't know.
The J.D. Rankin papers are stuff material which was sent to J.D. Rankin from various staff attorneys, and it was often in the form of rough drafts, just like pages and pages of very rough drafts. I think one of the people that sent many of his rough drafts to J.D. Rankin was David Slawson. There's certainly quite a few of Slawson's drafts there. But that's what really kicked me off, I think, really, to see. And I think there was an element of, I can't face it, because there were so many boxes, over 400 boxes.
Just Warren Commission stuff?
Just Warren Commission stuff, so I thought, oh God, can I really slog my way through that? And in the end, I thought, well, yeah, I got to do it, so I did it. That was the reason, really.
I'm going to put a link in the description that will take you to the folder with all the Warren Commission documents that Malcolm found, copied, and I scanned in as such. Let's just talk, first of all, there's let's just say the CIA and the Warren Commission. Let's start with that. Richard Helms. What is clear is that the whole anti-Castro Cuban, the support status, the help to those groups from the Central Intelligence Agency and so forth, wasn't really mentioned as such. Very little, actually, if not anything at all. But what was discussed between these two as such, when it comes from the Central Intelligence Agency compared to their correspondence with J. Lee Rankin?
I never did find too much correspondence from Helms, I don't think, did I? Really? I can't remember.
There's a few letters, but it's
not much. I think
it's more related to Oswald being an informant of the CIA or things like that.
What I noticed was a paucity of information. There was not as much information in the files from CIA that there should have been. So,
Tell Surprise.
Well, and I suppose the glaring example is the security office stuff, which is all absent. The material which was the discussions between David Slawson and Bruce Soley, you can't find any of that. The only thing you can find is some handwritten annotations by Slawson on his drafts, which obviously point towards correspondence between Slawson and Bruce Soley at CIA, but it's all absent. So, and I think that's probably an example of what was going on. I think in the aftermath, Marion Johnson, the archivist, and probably even later archivists held a lot of this stuff back. And we're probably still waiting for some of that material to surface. I don't, I just don't see in the CIA files for the Warren Commission enough material. It's just not there.
Right. Now, can I just go back to the Rankin papers? The Rankin papers, do they fall under the JFK Act?
I believe they do. Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time they're also, they are accessible, but other people's are working papers as such. I mean, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, this
Because
is
working papers are supposedly exempt from the
they are.
JFK Act.
That's true. Yeah, working papers are.
So
exempt.
why are the Rankin papers then visible for people to choose?
Because that was a family donation from the family. They called the review board, and it was a obviously they're JFK related, so it was just a matter of pro forma to get them into the archives as JFK material, in the collection. It's, I don't know how you would call it.
I mean, the Slawson papers.
When we talk about working papers,
Yeah.
Are the Rankin papers working papers? That term about, they're allowed, they're allowed NARA people or anybody that does working papers within the Act, as far as I know, are allowed to destroy them. So we just don't know how much in the way of working papers have been destroyed. No idea.
Right, this brings me to the Slawson papers. Slawson was a lot of it was notes, handwritten notes as such, but also, as you said earlier, annotations on draft documents or so. And I have to say, those drafts are fun to read because of some of them they comment things that, of course, normally should have never been seen in the public as such.
Except his handwriting is worse than mine. I find it very
You
difficult
gotta try mine.
to read Slawson's writing. I find it very difficult. But yeah, you hit on it, because they came out of, let me think, it's entry 44, the office files of staff, and Slawson's is part of that collection, which I think used to be 35 or 36 boxes, and then it was increased when they did a massive interfile between 2004 and 2006 at NARA. So they were increased. The box collection was increased. What I noticed from before, as I said, when I was doing the Armstrong research, I looked through the office files of staff. I remember that well. You could pick a box up, a grey file box, and it's almost empty. But after the 2004, 2006, when I went back again to the office files of staff, entry 44, I found the boxes were so full, you literally couldn't get another document into the box. They were heavy. Well, paper is heavy, as you know,
Yeah.
but certainly previously empty boxes were full. And that's when I went to the archivist, who I was quite friendly with, and asked for an index, and then got told there was no index for all the interfiles, all the additional filing they did in the Warren Commission files between 2004 and 2006. There was no index.
So it was just dumped.
Yeah, just stuffed in there, and his advice to me was, well, go make your own index. Use a negative template. In other words, if you go onto our website or go into our indexes, and anything you see withdrawn has now been released, he says. So I didn't think that was entirely fair or user-friendly. You know, I don't think researchers should be in a position to
Having to spend time on all that.
yeah, you know, having gone through all those 440 odd boxes, backwards and forwards, I was being forced to look again. You know, because for whatever reason they decided not to do an index. But I have a history with that because I had it with CIA segregated from microfilm. They really, again, no index was provided for all that material, nothing, absolutely zero. And in the end, they did do an index, and people like Joe Backus would be very interested in what they did was they provided a riff for each document that they released, and then filled up 24 boxes. That was their way of doing an index. Not user friendly, but at least it was there. At least the riffs were there.
Joe Bax would have been in a hog of heaven.
Yeah, right. Just to go through their idea of an index, 24 boxes on a cart, that takes a lot of time. A lot of time.
But that, in a way, it's just a continuation of what they did beforehand, because Sylvia Maher had to create an index, because there was no index at all when the report came out.
She did
Was it 23 volumes?
Yeah,
and
she did so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's one of my favorite researchers,
Yeah,
actually, what she
did so
did.
well.
And amazing what she found out in that short period of time. She already had a critique ready like a month after the release. She had, I think it's a 13 or 16 page article, and that's a critique already on just the report, just there and then. And I was like, within a month, and it was already an in-depth critique. She slaughtered the whole thing already there and then. So,
But you see, you know, with that not providing an index, I don't know many people know this. You know, I hear a lot of noise from these people that say, "Oh, we need this, we need that." You know, why haven't they released this? And, you know, I don't hear things. I don't hear anybody holding NARA's feet to the fire, because a massive interfile of new documents was done between 2004 and 2006. No index was provided for the research community so they could actually look
and see what's new.
See what's there. And, you know,
But
after a heated debate, my archivist friend said, "Well, they were my working papers, I'm allowed to destroy them." Well, not much of an answer.
Well, when the releases came out in 2017, again, there was no index of any shape or form, and it was I think the guys and girls behind the Black Vault that actually
They did some good stuff.
They got the documents together, and they basically started to use object character recognition, and basically made all the documents searchable as such. Now as NARA as well, but at first there was nothing of the kind as such, and you almost think like that's in tradition with the previous releases of your period of time of 04 or 06, but also when the report as such was released as well. Again, it's just to slow us down. That's all it is. I mean,
well, you've seen some of the internal correspondence with researchers, and it's not nice.
No, it's just pure frustration, and
it's not nice.
And you know what? The documents that you have on Harold Weisberg are an absolutely fantastic example of that, because he tells basically true to their face that they're lying and that they're full of it. You know, he just got to a point where he's just so many letters gone back and forth, and it just at some point it's like, forget about it. I'm just calling you for what you are, and then you see the internal letters and say, don't help him, avoid him, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And basically, just
but that was
hostile.
That was multiplied up with other researchers. You know, I'm sure it happened with Tink Thompson. I'm sure it happened with other researchers, first-generation researchers. You know, there was this systematic blocking of people.
Kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
That's what you call it with
Yeah.
the Central Intelligence Agency and certain files that need to come out. But it's I don't know. There's just delay.
But you see, there's a lot of mythology with the Warren Commission because I was assured by that archivist that interfile, for which there is no index, was the last interfile because everything concerning the Warren Commission, all documentation which had been redacted and withdrawn, was now out and open. Well, that's just not true.
No.
You know, I'm sure there are masses of stuff from CIA which is absent from those files. There's certainly officer security stuff which is definitely missing, and Max Holland will confirm that NSA material is missing from the NARA files, the Warren Commission files. All that stuff is missing. And there's no explanation at all. Nothing.
But we still got our hands on a lot, though. I mean, I totally agree with what you say, but you know what? These are also secret organizations. I mean, to expect them to go, here you go. You know, I mean, here in Britain, we would not have gotten maybe one A4 folder with 3 sheets in them, with something that has absolutely barely anything to do with what it is. But in the States,
yeah, we're suffocated by security in this country. When you try and research something, it goes through layers of bureaucracy and then it's buried, basically.
I mean that factor exists over in the States, of course, but you do. I mean, considering what's come out. And like you say, a lot of people don't understand the documents. They should be delving into stuff a little bit more so they actually start to create an understanding of what actually goes on as such. I have to tell you, 5 years ago, I knew absolutely bugger all about all this stuff. Bill who? Norbert who? Norbert Shepardneck who? What? Certain names started to ring a bell. But it's funny because the names that were ringing bells 10 years ago, Morales, for instance, Phillips as well, the legend that has been plaqued on them basically as such, and mythical and all that. But then when I read your collection, it's
problem with it with
minimal.
Everybody that looks at CIA stuff is they don't dig. They don't look in the right place, because if they looked in the right place they would find things which are extremely useful. And CIA's released this stuff. Nobody ever looks. And when I get down to it and really push myself to look at some of this stuff, because I'm going to say it is difficult.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have got to stick at it and dig at it to get an understanding. But if you get even a half understanding of their system structure, their organizations, it can teach you an awful lot. It's understanding. I think it's understanding what the branches are. What the various components, understanding what they do and how they relate to each other, will get you a long way to understanding.
Going back to the Warren Commission, and I'm thinking of a good person to bring that element you just mentioned back to the Warren Commission and say Alfreda Scooby. And Scooby was somebody who actually analyzed testimonies of people who did the Warren Commission testimony as such. On top of that, she also did the title eludes me right now, but she did that 20-odd page report about the Warren Commission itself. I get the feeling that she was part of something, but she's part of the clique, not so much, because her reports do point. There are elements where she points out and goes, it's a little bit.
Yeah, I think you've found an important person there, because her files were obviously they never made it to NARA in the first place.
Right.
In '64, they never made it there. It was only in 1966 when a locked filing cabinet was discovered, where they were clearing out some stuff in an office in the Naval Weapons Plant, which is where the Warren Commission sat in Washington D.C. That's the only reason her stuff surfaced was because somebody found a locked filing cabinet, and lo and behold, it contained her files. I'm not sure how much we got. Really, I'm not sure how much we got because...
Not loads. I mean, I'd say we'd have, paper-wise, maybe that much. You know, you're talking 2 inches of paper, you know, overall.
But maybe at the time I didn't realise the significance and didn't copy as much as I should do. I don't know. But I remember the documentation generated by GSA, the General Services Administration, about NARA, to NARA, concerning the discovery of those documents in a locked filing cabinet in 1966. And I had all the paper. I don't know if I think you probably have the paper on that. You know, the discussion about how they came to be lost, how they came to be found, what they were going to do with them.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So yeah, that was all interesting stuff to find out. And I think you're quite right to identify alfredoscopy. And that would be a project for somebody if it's possible for somebody in the States to go to NARA and just check out alfredoscopy's files. Yeah, I think that would be worthwhile.
I think
especially for them, if you're interested in the early evidence. And then, as you say, you've got someone, although she was part of the group of staff attorneys, she was almost separate. She had a mind of her own.
Yes.
And you can see that in the documentation.
Yeah, you read that in the documentation. It is her interpretation of the testimonial evidence as such. I mean, she doesn't take a distance or take it like down some road and just starts to speculate as such, but she does give it her angle because it's her way of basically picking out the things of importance and sticking those together, because she makes all these summaries of these witness statements. Then of course when it comes to the Warren Commission and to me,
she did an article called A Lawyer's Notes on the Warren Commission Report.
That's it.
Which was published in the American Bar Association Journal, volume 51, number 1, January 1965, pages 39 to 43.
There you go.
Well, we just found, it just triggered off a point in my mind is she was such a meticulous person. She has papers somewhere. There would be Alfreda Scobie papers somewhere in some library or some university. So, worth a look, worth a dig.
Definitely, always. There is, of course, we've mentioned this before, but since we're talking Warren Commission, the unedited Warren Commission testimonies from Dallas. You remember that? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, the stuff was sent up from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Dallas, and I think the date
Barefoot Sanders.
April 1965. And you've got a document which I've copied so many times, I think I must have copied it about 20 times, which gives the accession number.
What is the accession number?
The accession number it tells you it's a finding aid for life for archivists. It means if there's a shelf change or a box change, those documents, that testimony that was sent up, can always be found or located. In the case of the 4 FRCs, which is the Federal Record Center boxes, which the U.S. Attorney's Office sent up, which were unedited testimony, unedited, I keep using that word, they can't be located. There are obviously fragments that were associated with the stuff that the U.S. Attorney's Office sent up, but they're few and far between. They are interesting, the fragments we have, but 4 large boxes isn't just a few fragments in a grey file box. So we're talking about a lot of material there, which, if you're interested in the early
am I?
stuff, yeah, if you're interested in that stuff, that would have been a godsend. You know,
They are somewhere. They'll come out one day when they think it's time. Like, oh, you know what? It can come out now. You know.
You know, again, nobody, the accession numbers there, nobody holds Laura's feet to the fire.
How many times have you tried?
Many times.
Yeah.
Many times.
More than 5?
Yeah, more than 5.
Really?
Yeah.
And every time it's like we can't find it.
Yeah, or sometimes there was no answer. But I mean, yeah, it's a bit like the saga I had with the church committee files. You know, I made suggestion after suggestion because so much of the stuff we want to see is missing from the church committee. In the end, they did. The archivist I knew well did write a 2-page letter trying to explain how much was how much was missing, and then he quoted the ARB. Their version of it was that it was troubling. I think troubling that the Senate subcommittee on intelligence archives was missing so much material. Troubling, I think, was the term.
Cop out.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I mean, if this was a straightforward, simple case, we would be finding everything, and we find that time and time again, when we get somewhere, the stuff is missing. Can't be found.
I mean,
That tells a story in itself.
Yeah. I've got some of your documents that aren't online. Warren Commission documents. I mean, because the so-called not online moniker that I basically apply to many documents. So for those that don't know, I started scanning in Malcolm's archive early Feb 2019, and when COVID started, there were periods that I couldn't scan because of lockdown, and then I managed to get a lot of stuff in. We got loads of bags in with material, and in about the middle of 2021, 2 years ago, it got to a point where I went like, I don't want to scan everything in again, because if Mary Farrell has it, or the Black Vault has it, or the National Archive has it, what's the point of me scanning it in and presenting it when it's already there? Unless there's something really different. So I started scanning RIF numbers in. And the amount of RIF numbers that showed up not online, and not online is meaning either they might get a mention in the Federal Register, and that's a PDF with just numbers, and I mean you scroll your index finger up to oblivion because it's such a large file with just numbers in it, or there's absolutely nothing, and once in the blue moon you get like a product number that has those 13 digits as such, on the rare occasion. But what Malcolm's archive, and I think this is just sheer luck for the period that you were actually there, and the subsequent reclassifications, because the thing is with the so-called non-online moniker, it's all over. It isn't just Central Intelligence Agency, it's Department of State, it's ONI, it's HSCA, Central Intelligence Agency, US Secret Service, you name it, but also Warren Commission. There are some documents that have no presence whatsoever. Now, I don't know why that is, because they didn't do an index of some sort, like you mentioned, for instance. You know, it could be across the board that they just didn't do it. On top of that, a lot of the old stuff hasn't been digitized as such, because that's what Joe Biden already said. I've brought this up before as well. So it's quite possible that within a year or two, all of a sudden, a flood of old documents comes out and goes, we finally digitized it, and then it'll be different. But at this point, there are literally thousands of pages in Malcolm Blunt's archive that have absolutely no presence anywhere else than in that particular archive as such, which is pretty cool. You know, the fact that, I mean, I found documents for my own book that I never thought they would exist, but they did exist. And it gives you a much better picture into how bureaucratic the FBI actually is. It's unbelievable, you know. The director has to fart, and there's a memo going out as such, because they write up everything on everyone. All the people, I mean, that's what I found in your archive as well. There are people, names in, say, Austin or Miami, who were approached just after the murder of the president as such. And you go, I've never heard of him. And they do this whole report, and then at the end, the paragraph is like, well, he never saw him, and he's got nothing to do with him, and so forth, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, that's why they probably, but just the fact that they went everywhere to look for associations and so forth of Oswald as such. And it shows you how big the network was to actually go out. Because I looked at the documents and went, yeah, you know, that's a really good, nice collection of documents. But it was nothing compared to when I started digging into your selected collection, and basically what was available as such, and how widespread. And the same goes with the Warren Commission files. Once again, you have a lot of drafts for the chapters of the actual Warren report, like about the rifle and about where was Oswald, this, that, and the other, and they write all these annotations in there and go, this is too much speculation, and you don't know this, and you can't say that, and which of course is quite fun to read, because these people were so straight and so tunnel visioned with their report and their replies as such. So it gives you a bit of insight what these people were.
I think I only copied a partial draft, but I think
Yeah.
there was a big one that Spectre sent to J. Lee Rankin about the so-called magic bullet. And
Let's talk about that.
and I think it, if I remember correctly, it was full of annotations and crossouts that Spectre had done on a page after page after page of this stuff. I don't know if you do that.
Let me have a quick look. Uncle Arnold. He was an ambitious ambassador, wasn't he?
Well, it enhanced his career.
That's a way of putting it.
Yeah, the other side of that is he sold his soul. Yeah.
Spectre to Rankin.
Doesn't look like it.
No, it's the interview of Yarborough. Depositions, his bio. You know what? I'm gonna do it different. Spectre.
Sounds like something like James Bond,
It
isn't it?
was Spectre, yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
What was the earlier one? Was Smash, wasn't it?
Spurs, yes, really good ones, aren't they?
Yeah, Spectre, Smash.
No, I don't think. Oh, there's a lot of files here to go through. Autopsy. No. I will look that up.
Okay. But it's, I don't think I grabbed it all, but I think I grabbed a number of pages, which were absolutely covered in crossouts and annotations, page and page and pages.
Yeah, that makes it even more interesting. I mean,
which sort of demonstrates how difficult it was to
to
come
get
up
that
with
story straight.
incredible, yeah, to get the story to come up with some credible explanation of the magic bullet.
I did enjoy the documents where they did the chapters, and I think it was chapters 4 and 5. One was about the weapon, and the fingerprints and the palm print and so forth. Well, I think in my book I already clearly point out what the problems are with that whole thing, and Oswald's arraignment at that time, on early the morning of the 23rd. But yeah, just the annotations overall, the opinions of people and how they say, you know what, this needs to be changed and that is wrong and this is speculative, and like I said earlier, it gives you an insight into something that's meant to be, it's presented as the definitive word on the assassination of John F. Kennedy as such. And you know, Peter and I spoke about, what was the book again we just mentioned on the Warren Commission? Gerald McKnight.
Oh, Jerry McKnight, Breach of Trust.
Breach of Trust. I've got it. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my list of books to read as such.
We were saying it should be read in conjunction with Howard Rothman's. There's a book by Howard Rothman.
Right.
And Weisberg.
Yes. The title eludes me. Actually, I read part of it from my book, and then I did. Case? No, it's not Case Not Closed. It's something.
They did Whitewash.
Yeah.
Series.
Now people are shouting at the computer screen. It's called such and such. Yeah, horrible when you can't get the name. But yeah, that's one of my books basically on my list to read as such. Why was it a logical follow-up to do this for you after the Harvey and Lee thing, and basically say like, oh well, the Warren Commission is what I'm going to look into. And by the way, how comes you quit so quick? What was the distraction that you say like, well, I can move on from this subject? Because you said you did it for a couple of years from '99 till '01, and then you all of a sudden you go into what, Cuba, little Cuba?
Yeah, I've been doing Cuba on and off, I think. And I went into Cuba. That was, I think, because of the influence of Gordon Winslow in Miami.
Okay.
It was enormously helpful to me.
So it's easy to make that switch.
Cuban stuff is a nightmare, really. You almost want to be. Well, in so much of the Kennedy case, you need to be a specialist in certain parts of it. You know.
I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
And Gordon said to me when I first started to go to NARA, he asked me that question, you know, what are you looking at? And I said, everything. And his answer to me was, you're nuts. You're nuts. So, you know, he was probably right, I don't know, but I just felt like it was necessary. I think I said to Alan once, it was like, you know, trying to look at the collection in IMAX, you know, trying to get as much of the collection into my mind as possible, you know. What it contained, what it didn't contain, you know, all the missing stuff, all the stuff where there were problems. You know, I think there's some people talking about chokeholds, which years ago I used to call choke points. And you know, there's really quite a few simple ones. You know, the fact that nobody seems to be able to locate a manifest for Oswald's flight to Helsinki. You know, what's that about? That's just like, you know, it's really disgusting, isn't it? You know, when you think about it, an obvious flaw.
Isn't there an issue with the Maasdam thing as well? From him going onto the ship back to the States, people try to talk in the shipping company in Rotterdam and they can't find it either, or they won't give any information as such. That's what I remember reading at some point.
I got the feeling there was some, you know, the manifest for the Maasdam was given to the review board by a guy called Michael Leahy, I think, Leahy. And he worked for INS.
Okay.
And he certainly did. He was a very cooperative guy.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. He anytime he was asked for information, it looked like he worked really hard to see if he could find, you know, these old records. And I believe he sent the manifest for the Maasdam to the review board.
Going back to the Warren Commission records. what didn't you touch? I mean, you go through this. You only spent 2 years on it as such. On that, the way what you say, you focused on the Warren Commission for that period of time.
The focus is like a loose term because, you know, obviously I go off the reservation onto other stuff, you know.
Get distracted.
Yeah, because of, you know, there were new, I can remember at one point the CIA segregated collection printed from microfilm came out, so I thought, well, that's somewhere I want to look. So, you know, it wasn't total focus. I did spend a lot of time in it, and I remember I did go forwards and I did go backwards through the collection. There's a lot of stuff I didn't really go page by page deeply. I mean, a lot of the draft versions of the Warren Commission, the rough drafts that were being made, I never went through those. You know, there are boxes and boxes and boxes of that. You know, so.
What is this about the room, the Rankin room, where the mock-up was of Dealey Plaza and there was only a key, it was in his drawer and people could only look at it?
I don't know that.
Somebody told me this. I think it was, it might have been Ian Griggs, but they said that that's because you've got some pictures of those mock-ups
Sure.
of Dealey Plaza that was on the table as such. But that people
I
had to
mean,
get
a
the
lot
key
of
for
great
it.
photographs in the Warren Commission collection of early stuff. I remember when I was there with Bill Drenus. Bill was a researcher from Draycote, Massachusetts, that focuses, well, he focused on the Tippit shooting, but he was also very interested in how the Warren Commission did its business. So, and he went into a lot of the photographs, he looked at a lot of photographs. He had excellent photographs in the Warren Commission collection. For someone like yourself, it would be fascinating to go through those boxes.
I'll never leave. Some people, that might make some people really happy, but
I mean, there's things like, you know, how the Warren Commission looked at some of this stuff in detail, like, you know, pictures of the bus, was it Scoggins? The bus
Scoggins was a cab driver, it was McWaters.
McWaters, that drove the bus.
Yeah, McWaters, yeah. Cecil McWaters.
And, you know, he's got these great big photographs of the bus from all angles, front, back, top. So it's...
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, amazing collection of photographs, really.
But it's like the photos inside the Texas School Book Depository, same thing. They took pictures of every nook and cranny
Yeah.
of those floors. Unbelievable, they're everywhere. And all shot by 5.4 camera. So great sharpness, great quality. You know, they've been really good to help identify things inside the Texas School Book Depository as such. But no, the bus, no. But I would like to see actually the pictures they took of the rifle at the FBI lab with Lantona, yeah, because that will show right away there and then that the whole rifle was stripped and photographed as such. So there would be no way those guys would actually miss the palm print underneath the barrel, right? No, we left the stock on. Yeah, sure you did. You know, because it says in the documentation. That's again some of the documentation of the fingerprints and the palm prints are just nowhere to be found. Malcolm managed to get them, but digitally, they're just nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I think that's a whole big issue that's never been addressed, really. The fingerprints.
It's just really shittily done, and at the same time, to me, just crystal clear that the fingerprints were terribly done. Then they were given away. Then the trigger guard is smudged, so they can't do that. So, and because the fingerprints are taken away by Vincent Drain, just after Oswald's press conference, and then they decide to do another set of fingerprints when Oswald is on the 4th floor on his way from the press conference going up to his prison cell, and then basically taken out and having this picture taken and the picture in between two policeman, and also they take his shirt off him, his jacket, what you call it, and then also basically take his fingerprints again.
Yeah.
And that creates a problem, of course, because then you don't have the evidence together. And palm prints as well. So fingerprints and palm prints were taken again by Carl Knight, because the first set was taken at 9 o'clock, picked up at about 1:45 roughly, and then about half an hour, 45 minutes later, they make new sets of the fingerprints and the palm prints, and yet after that they arraign him for the murder of the president as such. And that's then the problem, because the Heidel ID hasn't been into play all day, except for a name from the military intelligence officer who confirms this, but then gets called out of nowhere by someone whose name he doesn't remember. And this whole Heidel malarkey is complete rubbish until the next morning when they find the rifle order as such at 7:30 in the morning. But to arraign him, they arraigned him five hours prior to that find. There is absolutely no connection between the rifle and the Heidel ordering that particular rifle as such. No fingerprints, no palm prints. Marina didn't recognize it. So yeah, there's a huge problem with that. Start putting it into a chronology and it starts to look completely different as such. Warren Commission. Everyone always talks about how Dulles was always present, uber present, during all the testimonials as such, and that certain individuals were barely there as such. What, from what you've read?
Well, you know, when you look at the bound testimonies, which I'm not talking about the unedited testimonies that came from Texas, I'm talking about the bound testimonies, which are present. And they were the transcripts were done by Warden Paul, you know, a legal firm in DC. And what you see is, what you notice is there are gaps in the testimony. You know, you suddenly find it finishes there, and then it starts there.
Oh right, so it's blank on the page itself.
Yeah, and one of the best examples, I think, was Jesse Curry, where he was just about to talk about the pressure coming down on the Dallas Police Department from Washington, individuals in Washington, D.C., about the evidence and about Oswald. And he just starts to talk about it, and he's cut off. He's completely cut off by Dulles, Alan Dulles, who suddenly announces a lunch break. At the moment, I think we need to go for a lunch break at the moment, or something like that. It's not even going off the record. It's going for a lunch break. This is 11:30 in the morning. 11:30.
Let's have an early lunch.
And when they resume in the afternoon at 2 o'clock or 2:30, I can't remember quite now. The discussion is now, Chief Curry. Before lunch, we were talking about Detective Reville. So they don't go back to the conversation. It's a completely new conversation, completely manufactured. With the stuff which would have been
Gold.
a hot potato. Really. Jesse Curry's talking about. He was starting to talk about the pressure they were under from Washington, D.C. And the person that stopped that discussion was Alan Dulles. And Dulles, I think, was there, really...
Gatekeeper.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about him as some old duffer, everybody's favourite uncle and all the rest of it. But he was a sharp dude. He could see where the problems were, the problems could be. He certainly did it with you know, when James Cadigan testified.
Oh yeah.
He was the only person there from the Warren Commission.
Tell us about that.
Well, that was the question document examiner, James Cadigan, testified, and the staff attorney there deposing him was Melvin Eisenberg, and they got into a discussion about the condition of the documents. Melvin Eisenberg complained that a lot of the documentation was discoloured. You know, it was in bad condition. We couldn't see the writing on the page. Couldn't see this. Couldn't see that. Which really ruffled Cadigan's feathers. He didn't like that at all, and so he announced quite openly that they had hundreds of items come into the lab in the early morning of the 23rd of November. Hundreds of items, and they were instructed to deal with these items and then send them back to Dallas within 2 or 3 days, which they did do. But what he says is they had no time to desilver them. You know, a lot of the discoloration was checking for fingerprints, so they couldn't do their job properly because of the pressure of having to get hundreds of documents back to Dallas in 2 or 3 days. Of course, it was officially released 2 or 3 days later, 3 days later, I think. But nobody talks about that. You know, it doesn't exist.
Swept under the carpet.
I don't know, even our own research committee.
No,
sometimes I look at it, our research committee, and I think,
we don't have one.
I don't get it.
They don't get it.
I don't get it. There are many things, you know, that people could be digging around at.
There's plenty to dig around. I mean, if
we talked earlier on about John McNaughton, you know.
Yeah. Because you mentioned him last time, I didn't even know about him,
Yeah,
and then you started. Oh yeah. Then I started looking at the documents. I was like, right.
Well, we do have a single document that was McNaughton's to do with.
Oh, and I.
No, it's to do with a conversation with Nick Katzenbach about the rifle, I think.
Okay.
So, and that document, I never understood where it came from, and I still don't know where it came from. I think it shows up in Weisberg's files.
Right.
It shows up in Bella Abzug's files. So in 2 or 3 places it shows up. But beyond that, I don't know. But it obviously came from McNaughton's files at one stage.
Interesting individual, especially because you check out his career. When I send you the link at Nara with all the stuff that refers to him.
Why did you notice? You sent me those links for the Kennedy Library, and he's done an oral history, part 1 and part 2. So part 1 is to do with the early part of the Kennedy administration. Part 2 is to do with leading up to the Cuban Missile Crisis. Part 3 and part 4. There's nothing about the assassination. Nothing. Nothing pre-assassination. Nothing to do with the assassination. You know, nothing to do with the aftermath or the Warren Commission. That doesn't sound right to me. We've just got parts 1 and 2. We haven't got 3 or 4.
No, of course not. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Right. I think we're going to call it a day.
Okay.
It's been good fun. Thanks very much for your time once again. We went a little bit astray, but hey, such is life. Thanks everyone.
Well, you better tell people I'm off
For what? You're off.
retirement.
Oh yeah. Well, Malcolm allegedly goes for.
Allegedly.
It's going for retirement.
Onto a
Spanish
Spanish island.
He's going to go away for a while, but he'll be back next year, and we'll meet up and we'll have another chat. And but we'll have a break for a few months, that's for sure. And hopefully we catch up at some point in the spring, all rejuvenated and refreshed, and probably everything forgotten by then. So, but anyway, thanks for your interest and thanks for your time, and to the next time. See you later. Bye.